Hello, everyone, and welcome to Shopify Compass. This is a platform built for you, and our goal is to help take the guesswork out of entrepreneurship and help you launch and grow your business with more confidence. You can choose between online courses, past workshops that we've done, and of course, these weekly live webinars every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, where you can connect with others in the community and also have your questions answered live. So please pop in right now into the chat. Let us know that you're online with us. If this is your first time or if you're coming back, in that case, welcome back again. Let us know where you're coming from. And I am your host. My name is Sigute Zidakite. I'm on the partnerships team here at Shopify, and I work with our top educators and partners who truly know Shopify inside and out. And we have two very special guests today who will be leading this webinar on how to get the most out of your dollar with Google Ads during uncertain times. They are both from MuteSix, a digital out of Los Angeles, and helping build for the future through ads and creatives. And so we're really lucky to have them here today and share their expertise. First, Phillips, he's the VP of Paid Search. He was one of the early members at MuteSix and was chosen to lead the Google department. And he's now growing a world-class Google Ads account management team at the agency. And we also have Jenna Chandler. She's a senior paid search campaign manager. She's an expert in paid search, conversion rate optimization, creative, and analytics, helping grow small brands all the way up to large brands, including Pokemon and the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, which is my favorite when I go to the States. So please help me, everyone, in welcoming Harrison and Jenna. Welcome.
Thank you, Sigute. Nice to be with you guys, to be with Shopify. I've been with MuteSix for about 5 years. I think some important background for you guys to know. Most of our clients at MuteSix are e-commerce brands, direct-to-consumer brands, brands in the health and wellness space. So when we're talking about a lot of the recommendations today, just keep that in the back of your mind. That's traditionally who we work with. MuteSix is a great direct-to-consumer marketing agency. I personally lead a team of 35 media buyers. We have designers on our team to help make display ads. We have YouTube editors. So we're really excited to kind of share our best practices with you today and talk about how we're navigating the uncertain times of COVID right now for our clients. A little bit of background on MuteSix. Again, mostly work with e-commerce brands. We started with Facebook and Instagram and Google and YouTube as kind of our pillars. We're the #1 most awarded Facebook ad agency, 300 plus. It's 500 million in annual ad spend. We've recently expanded to other channels such as Amazon and email to help with retention. We're getting into more, influencer and TikTok, which is really exciting. I think one of the biggest things that distinguishes our agency is we have a 60-person in-house creative team. So full of producers, editors, visual effects artists, and really creative is kind of the backbone of the agency and how we win on these channels. So really take an omni-channel approach for our clients, trying to help them win across all of these channels. And we'll speak to it a little bit later, but we've set up this COVID dashboard to kind of help you guys see where the market's moving. And it's really nice because it's split up by vertical, so it can show you trends on conversion rate and spend. So at the end of the presentation, and it also should be in the chat. So just getting through this really quickly, just to, as I said, we take our clients through the full prospecting and retention cycle. We offer conversion rate optimization, in-depth analytics. We build landing pages. We help build websites. More recently, we've gotten into some new channels such as TikTok and Pinterest, which has really been amazing. TikTok actually has helped, organic TikTok posts has helped, I think, a few clients sell out of their inventory in the last few weeks. So we see it as kind of the next up and coming channel, and that's tied into our influencer strategy. And as I said, we're also offering programmatic as well. So again, full funnel DTC marketing agency, helping scale brands. We've had quite a few brands that have gotten acquired and raised funding. So very proud of that. And yeah, I think moving through this, we'll talk about the agenda today. There's a lot of golden nuggets in here. I mean, we're giving away a lot of secrets today. Who this is for, I think anyone that is running Google Ads, media buyers, practitioners, marketing managers, also business owners who just want to better understand the PPC landscape. I think in more recent times, we've had clients that have come in that are much more familiar with social and kind of let PPC do its thing. So I really want our clients to understand our blueprint for success on Google and how we see brands really winning. Because the landscape has really changed over the last year and a half, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And then last week, COVID that I think are unique because of our client offering. So yeah, we're going to go through the agenda, and the first stop is product adoption. We have linked to here all of the sources that we've gathered data for to compile, from our own internal channels. This is data from Google, from Klaviyo, from Shopify, ShipBob. So I think just remember as well, when we're talking about this, we have a unique position because of our clientele. So we're seeing certain things that some other agencies are not. So yeah, we're going to get into it, starting with product adoption. We're going to be going over each Google product and really how you should be leveraging it. And I think you'll find some unique tidbits in here that we definitely pride ourselves on taking a unique approach. Our blueprint is a bit different than I think most agencies approach Google. To start, why is it important to be fully adopted into Google products? Each product really plays a different role in the funnel and requires a different approach. So, at the outset, at a high level, it's really important just to stay in front of your users at all times, right? And Google allows you to do that. And really, it's important. You should be splitting your budget according to what's performing always, but you should also be looking at, your ROAS expectations for you. So YouTube acquisition, when you're trying to acquire new customers, that's, you should have different ROAS expectations for that as opposed to shopping. So I think, when we audit accounts, and we audit, hundreds of accounts, thousands of accounts a year, when we're looking at that, a lot of times we're heavily indexed on search as being the most mature product. And a lot of clients coming in are heavily indexed on shopping in terms of where their spend and revenue is coming from. But we're really interested in diving into new sources of revenue, new sources of discovering top of funnel traffic. And so that's why we're kind of bullish on YouTube, on things like display acquisition and discovery. And that's why we really push full product adoption. And on the left-hand side, we'll revisit this, but this is how we look at audiences. So one of the things I would challenge you is, if you're a brand, to really get in depth on what is the difference between similar audiences, custom intent audiences, affinity audiences. And there's thousands of audiences that Google offers for you to actually take advantage of. And a lot of times, again, when we audit accounts, we're just the correct way or at all. So we're going to talk about audiences in the second section, but first we're going to go over each product and how it plays a different role in the funnel. We'll start here with shopping ads. Shopping to us is the most important campaign type that you can run. If you came to me and you're a new brand, you're saying, where should I start on Google Ads? Build a really robust Google shopping feed. Stuff your product titles with non-branded keywords that you want to show up for. Add seller ratings. This is really where you're going to win. A fully ramped shopping campaign should be spending about 40 to 50% of your monthly budget. Obviously, that's want to take performance into account there, but we want to see usually between a 2.5 and a 4x ROAS from Google Shopping. And the way you really win here, it starts with the feed, right? Think of your shopping feed as the engine to your car. So if you can build your feed in a really robust way, meaning you're putting your non-branded keywords into your product titles, you're stuffing your descriptions with all of the searches that you want to show up for, you're testing different product images and different promotions. That's the way that you're really going to tell Google what you want to show up for, and the way that you're going to, show the consumer the correct ad. So shopping, again, it's a competitive place, but there's been some really cool developments recently. I'll pass it over to Jenna, who can kind of tie that to Shopify.
Yeah, and to Harrison's point, optimizing those product titles, descriptions, other fields in the feed, it can be really daunting, especially if you have a lot of SKUs. Shopify is compatible with a lot of different feed management apps. At MuteSix, we typically use Data Feed Watch, which really helps us optimize those feeds at scale. In addition to that, the seller ratings are also driven through Google compatible review platforms. So Yotpo, Stamp.io, which are all really seamlessly integrated into Shopify's apps.
Yeah, it's a great point. So Shopify is really seamlessly integrated into Data Feed Watch, which helps us build, again, really robust feeds. Tying into the next slide, you'll see on the right-hand side surfaces across Google. You want to make sure if you are running shopping ads that is active. One of the really cool recent developments on Google is they're now going to add new free product listings. So, code name Frugal. We're moving to a more free platform similar to Amazon, where you can get more eyeballs on your ads. The reason Google is doing this is to actually bring more brands on. So you can actually run Google Shopping without having to pay for anything. You can just run unpaid ads now. And they're doing it to be a bit more competitive with Amazon again and get you free clicks. So this is only for the Google Shopping tab. So if you scroll over to the shopping tab and you click that, that's actually where you'll see the unpaid listings. We think, and this is anecdotal, but we think about 15% of traffic actually does click on that shopping tab. Moves the needle to be seen, but again, it's a really cool development on the Google side. And just to tie it all together, shopping is the most important campaign type. It's the best way to acquire new users, get new users in the funnel. It's the best conversion campaign type, and it should be the majority of your budget. Now we're going to talk about search. And I don't want to go too much into search because I think it's the most mature product. We audit a lot of accounts. They're running brand, they're running non-brand. So we really just want to talk about some unique ways that we think you can run. Starts with, so search is that a lot of times the cost per clicks are too high to really be competitive. So if you want to bid on vegan makeup, for instance, in your cosmetics brand, that might just be too expensive. It might be too crowded of a space for you to win on and get an efficient ROAS. So when you combine these audiences that you see here with a keyword like vegan makeup, you can actually win in a big way. We call these RLSA campaigns. So Jenna, I'll let you talk a little bit more about this.
Yeah, absolutely. There are some really creative ways that we have used RLSA campaigns. One example I'll give you is Mother's Day. It's a competitive term. If you're limited with budget, a smaller brand, there's no way that you can really win on that term, especially during Mother's Day. But if you pair your audiences with those really broad terms, you can drive a lot of really qualified users to your site who are more likely to purchase a gift, for example, for Mother's Day.
Yeah, exactly. So someone that has some brand familiarity, they've been to your site before, now they come back and search a Mother's Day related keyword, or they come back and they search for most comfortable t-shirt. You can't win there because the CPCs are too high, but now you can because you have a more targeted user. And that ties in nicely to the next slide, because this is something that we're combining with automated bidding to actually win in a big way on search. And I think this is called combined audiences. It's one of the newer developments that's come out for search. So in this, you're selling like a high-tech running shoe that tracks, how many miles you're running, but also just looks really cool, and you're a running enthusiast. We know that the tech audience for your specific brand indexes really high as a customer. And also we want to target running enthusiasts, right? So maybe you can't normally bid on the keyword running shoes, but you can bid on the keyword running shoes if you're only targeting people who are in the running enthusiast audience and also in the technophiles audience, right? Because we know that this audience has a higher propensity to buy your shoe, and it's not just blanket targeting everyone that's searching for that term. Another thing that I'd mention about non-branded search is just from a benchmarks, like an expectation standpoint. See a lot of brands coming in spending a lot of money on search. We typically only spend about 10 to 20% of our monthly budget on search, and that's combined with brand. I think on the non-branded search side, what winning looks like for us is if we can get between like a 1.5 and a 2x ROAS at scale, that is a good, healthy ROAS for a lot of our brands. Sometimes 2.5, 3x, depending on the week and the time of year, where you can, obviously Q4, you can get this is on non-branded search. But in general, I think your spend on non-branded search shouldn't range higher than that. It's kind of a mistake that we see a lot of brands making when we audit, is they mature product where their mind goes, and that's where they want to spend most of their money. These are some unique strategies for you to win on search, obviously lessening the scale, but hopefully increasing the ROAS. This next slide is showing you discovery ads. So you have this new campaign type that was in beta. It's mostly out for most advertisers to use now, but where you can show display ads across the YouTube home feed, across Gmail, and across the Discover newsfeed, which is actually only available to Android devices. So this is kind of a direct move into. It's more visual. Brands that have beautiful display ads, beautiful HTML5 ads, static ads, that's where you can really win here. The cool thing about discovery ads is that the CPCs are incredibly low. So you can target someone, for instance, on Google search who searched for running shoes on discovery and get them to the site for 50 cents to 75 cents. So that's what got us initially really excited, is like, wow, we can get the same qualified traffic to the site for much cheaper. And so again, I think the way we've seen brands win here, not only for remarketing, but also acquisition, is building out beautiful display creative that you can, obviously apply to the YouTube home feed, to Gmail ads, and to the Discover news feed, and leverage that to get a more engaged audience to your site. The next slide, I think, is probably what we're most excited to talk about when it comes to Google products, and that's YouTube. So this is showing you how users are discovering brands from Gen Z to millennials, but also, fun stat is that Google came out with is that 1 in 3 baby boomers actually use YouTube to discover new brands or do product research. And when we've had brands that have older audiences as well, we've found just as much success there as we have with brands that skew a bit younger. So I think one of the biggest differences right now, that as opposed to 2 years ago, is that we can actually run YouTube campaigns to top of funnel cold audiences and win. We can get a 1.5 to 2.5x ROAS at scale. And I think in the best case scenario, if you have really good video creative, you're actually spending maybe 20 to 25% of your monthly budget on YouTube acquisition alone. And I think in the past, we've always thought of social, the channel that's going to drive that top of funnel traffic, and Google's going to convert it. And I think in a large part, that's still true, is shifting. So what's changed? In a lot of ways, these 3 formats have helped us convert users at a higher rate. So Google came out with new formats to allow advertisers to show ads in a different way, which will show you what it looks like. But just for your sake, if you're an actual media buyer, this is what it looks like in the platform. We have YouTube discovery ads, we have TrueView for action ads, and we have YouTube shopping. So these are the formats that have actually helped us scale on YouTube. YouTube shopping is really cool. You tie it into your shopping feed. So if you're showing a video, I like to use YouTube shopping when you have a video that's product specific. So say you came out with a new on pants and you have a video specifically for that, you can then show all of the different variations here of those pants or other products, right? So that's when I really like to use YouTube shopping. The cool thing about YouTube shopping, and this is true for shopping as well, is like you get the product image, you get price point pre-qualified here so the user knows how much it costs, and then you go directly to the product page to make a purchase. So it's one of the cool things. And this is true for TrueView for action as well. But even after you skip the ad, let's say you watch 15 seconds of a 30-second ad, you're interested in it, but you want to watch your Nicki Minaj music video, these shopping products actually remain in the top right-hand corner, and you'll notice it next time you're on YouTube. So that's one of the cool new features of these formats. The second feature is YouTube discovery, and that's really cool for products that are more searchable, that people are actually going into YouTube and looking up DIY or videos or how-to videos. That's where you really lean into. And so you can see, I'll go back to this, it's at the top of the search results, but in the next slide, it's also YouTube discovery also shows on the right-hand side as you're watching a video. And then the difference with TrueView for action is, as a format, is you'll see you have a call to action here, in the left-hand corner that pops up at the 3rd second. So it prompts the user to actually go to the site there. But again, even let's say you skip the ad, this banner actually remains in the top right-hand corner. So YouTube has done a much better job with its formats in getting people actually to the site. So it's one of the more recent developments. Other new developments that we've seen work really well, we'll talk about custom affinity. Placement campaigns are when you actually a channel or a specific video. So say you have a competitor that's doing a product review of their product, and that's like kind of a cool place for you to show your ad before that video, right? Or say you have an influencer that's reviewing your product and a competitor's product. Well, we want to show an ad before that video as well, especially if it's a positive review. That's a placement campaign. And then for all of my, DDC brands collecting emails out there, there's a new lead form beta that actually helps seamlessly from YouTube, similar to Facebook lead ads. Quality is always a concern there, but it's certainly a useful campaign type. So, and then on the Google Shopping side, free product listing ads, we talked about that. There's also within Merchant Center a tool that will allow you to see how competitive your price is versus your competition's price, and where you over-index or under-index on price, which I think helps a lot of our brands determine if they're actually priced appropriately. And then there's also like top products for every vertical. So you can see in the home goods vertical what's performing, and all relatively new. So to tie out the product adoption theme, we have all of these product or campaign types on the right-hand side. This is how we see it in the funnel compared to, say, Facebook ads. So branded search, Google Shopping being at the bottom of the funnel, getting people back to the site from dynamic remarketing or Gmail ads, non-branded search. And then you can see, the upper funnel is mostly YouTube display acquisition, discovery acquisition. So I think if you take anything away from this group of slides, it's stay in front of your consumer, have different ROAS goals for different products, and know that they play a different role in the funnel, and don't let creative hold you back. I think there's a lot of different ways that you can use product images for display. Just be really scrappy with running HTML5 against static ads that can help you lean into display a bit more. Now we're going to talk about audience expansion. So again, we talked about product. We're going to go back to this slide, products here on the right. Make sure you're adopted into all of these products. Now, as I said, for you as a brand, it's really important, or as a media, familiarize yourself with every single type of audience that you can run on Google. There's hundreds, there's thousands of audiences. When we audit accounts, 90% of them go untapped. And we really want to talk to you a little bit today about the audiences that we're really leaning into, that we're finding, a lot of success with. And then this slide is really important. There's a lot here, so go back and review it when we send out the presentation afterwards. But just remember that some audiences can be applied to certain products and vice versa, whereas other audiences cannot. So obviously shopping is pretty limited in the audiences that you can apply, whereas display, discovery, and Gmail, most all audiences. So let's start with custom intent. This is what I think is one of the coolest developments on Google in the last 2 years. They combine the power of Google search with YouTube targeting. So now we can take anyone's search query. So if you're looking for longwear foundation, and you want to bad, you can now build audiences based on Google search results. Example of an audience that we built for one of our at-home gym clients. We wanted to target people who were searching on search for our non-branded keywords, but specifically the ones that had converted, right? So we're reaching users based on what they're passionate about and what they've actually searched for. So when you're looking at custom intent audiences, our main recommendation is use your non-branded keywords, use your competitor keywords, and use any blog and forum keywords. So you're building audiences, again, based on a user's search history. The next type of audience we're going to talk about is custom affinity, and this is really exciting too. So now you're reaching users based on their habits and their interests. So we've given you an example here of, we have a brand that has influencers that are advertising on TikTok, where we think this influencer is directly related to the audience that we want to target. So we go and we pull their specific TikTok URL, we apply it to a custom affinity audience, and we run YouTube ads behind it. And so far, this has been giving us a 2.5x ROAS at scale. It's incredibly exciting. We do the same thing with Instagram URLs, build out, Instagram URLs of influencers, celebrities that we think our audience matches with, or influencers that we actually have deals with. So really way to target people on Google. You'll see you can put in interest here. You can put in URLs. We primarily use URLs for competitor sites as well. That works really well. And then blogs and forums work really well. Pass it over to Jenna to talk about some of the other ways we use custom.
Yeah, and this really goes for any top of funnel audience, but these audiences can be extremely large. The reach, especially on YouTube or display, can be millions and millions of people. With a limited budget, that just might not be possible. So we found a lot of success by combining these custom affinity audiences and really custom intent, all sorts of audiences at the top of the funnel. Very specific demographic and location targeting, especially locations based on household income. Combined with powerful creative, reaching the right user with that exact message has just really shown an incredible success within our accounts.
Yeah, and I would say 90% of the accounts we audit have not leaned into custom intent or custom affinity. I'm going to go back to just so everybody can see. We really view custom intent as just above, remarketing list in terms of acquisition audiences and where it lies in the funnel. I think custom affinity could be in here as well. And the next thing we're going to talk about is in-market behavior and how we leverage in-market audiences, which are a little bit more broad than, say, your custom affinity or custom intent audiences. You'll get a bit more scale here. One thing, if you've never seen this is the Audience Insights tool. You can see this is actually getting audience recommendations based on our all converters list. So it's really cool. You can plug in your converters list, your pixeled converters, and then Google will tell you for this specifically, rugs and carpets, this in-market audience has a 3.9 times more likely, the consumer is 3.9 times more likely to be a customer of your brand in this audience. So just to say that a little bit more seamlessly, the bedding audience, for instance, this customer is 3.6 times more likely to be a customer of your brand, right? So you have this tool that Google will show you both in-market and affinity audiences, who's more likely to be your customer. And that's a really good starting place. So you go into, say, we have a client that offers a tanning solution. So this makes sense. And before you run a YouTube campaign, you're like, okay, well, what audiences am I going to target? I've built out custom intent. I've built out some custom affinity. Now I want to get a bit broader within market. Well, you use the Audience Insights tool. Tanning and sun care products is 16.3 times more likely to be a customer of yours, everyone in this audience. So we're going to target that to start off. Right? Again, this is a tanning product. So spas and beauty services, bath and body products, that makes sense. Luggage, not necessarily, but we'll test it, right? Because Google's telling us that people in that audience have a higher propensity to be our customer. This is another audience type, very top of funnel, but I think it's very specific for certain types of verticals, maybe like education, for instance, higher ed, but it's called detailed demographics. You can target homeowners, you can target parents based on their marital status and their education. So again, I think that's more top of funnel. If you're looking for a place to start, this is probably not it, but wanted to show you again, it's out there. You have the opportunity to leverage it. And then we didn't touch on these, but one of the ones I'll mention is video viewers. So if you're running YouTube campaigns at scale and you're trying to figure out how to quantify YouTube, you can actually build a video viewer audience of anybody that's ever seen a video on your channel or viewed a video as an ad. And then you can apply those audiences to brand and display and shopping, right? So you can actually see if the video viewer audiences are then going back and searching for your brand and converting there. So one of the other reasons that YouTube isn't widely used is people don't really understand how to quantify the conversions coming from the channel. And I think this is outside of direct conversions and video, view through conversions using a video viewer audience and applying it to other campaign types to help quantify. And then similar audiences is, if you're familiar with Facebook, it's your lookalike audience on Google. We see that as a lower to mid funnel tactic. You create a similar that's every, and then you leverage, Google's automated bidding, and typically that leads to success. So third theme is automation, and really this should be more along the lines. I just wanted to educate you guys on what signals Google is taking into account when they make a bid on a user, because there's still a lot of companies out there that are using manual CPC for a lot of acquisition, where we lean really heavily into some of Google's automated bidding strategies. So this is really cool. Google takes in thousands of signals to determine when to show a user an ad. It's auction level bidding, which means it's actually showing an ad to you based on where you are, what device you're searching, your past purchasing history, the sites you visit. So there's all of these things that come into account when determining how to actually create a bid for that user and what the cost per click should be. And we found that, there's typically a sweet spot in the right place to bid. And this is when we, again, leverage Google's algorithm quite a bit. So we can figure out what that sweet spot is. It probably doesn't make sense to pay $3 to $4 if you're selling a product that's $20, right? It doesn't back out. So where are these queries? Where are these auctions that we can win? Where can we find users that have, again, a higher propensity to buy from our brand specifically? What's the right amount that I can pay to actually maximize sales? And so what helps us do that is certain automated bid strategies, which we'll get into in a second. But this is just kind of a last slide to reiterate that point. Signals differ based on where a user is, what market they're in, the brand they're searching for, their actual search term. So if they use a longer tail keyword versus a very generic size, gender, price, all of these things come into account to make an actual bid at the user level. So whereas our jobs as media buyers 2-3 years ago was adjusting bids constantly, right? That's what a Google campaign manager used to do. Just make different bids on zip codes and time of day. We still do some of that stuff, but a lot of times we're leaning into Google's machine learning and automated bids. So they're taking into account not only user signals, but also product insights. So what products are selling the best? This is if you have a big catalog of products and you're like, well, why does this product show more often than this one? Well, a lot of times it's because of conversion rate, the category, and the actual user signal that Google is getting, where the user's searching from, what they search for, some seasonality trends as well. So automation helps us use all of these signals to serve the right ad on the right platform at the right time. So that gets us into actual bid strategies that we lean into. We'll cover this briefly, but target CPA allows you to set your own cost per acquisition cost. So I can't spend more than $50 to acquire a user. It's a good time to lean into target CPA. You tell Google how much you're willing to pay for a customer, and Google tries to maximize your reach. Typically with TCPA, ROAS, max conversions, there's a 7 to 14 day learning period, and you do need adequate conversion data in the account for really to get going. So sometimes we actually will start campaigns off on manual CPC just to get some data back, just to get some scale, and then we'll move it over to target CPA. With ROAS, it's the same concept, right? You're just saying, hey, I need a 2x ROAS on this campaign or within this ad group. And you can set that across search, shopping, YouTube, display. You can set a ROAS if you have enough conversion data. So TCPA, ROAS, more limiting. They're gonna limit your scale, right? Because you're telling Google you can only spend this much to acquire a customer. Max conversions is like ultra aggressive. Say it's Q4, it's Black Friday. You're like, I want to cast as wide of a net as possible. I know these keywords convert. You might switch over to a max conversion strategy to be really aggressive. Sometimes that's max conversion too aggressive to run throughout the year. So you want to do it during promotional periods. And then manual CPC, we usually use that to control our bids. So like for your branded campaigns, you don't want to be bidding, $1.50 for your branded keywords. so we can use a manual CPC bid strategy to say, we only want to spend 50 cents on our keywords. I think the other really important thing to remember with target CPA and target ROAS is you don't want to move it too much. So if you have a $100 target CPA, you wouldn't want to then go and set it at $200, right, the next day. You want to let the algorithm learn, and if you're going to make any changes, make it within 20% of what you're currently targeting. So if you're at 1x ROAS, large swings to, then put it at a 2.5x ROAS, right? Because that's going to significantly limit your reach. And also we've seen it mess up the spin, mess up the algorithm. So make your changes to these things slight and adjust. Cool. Now we're going to get into, and by the way, that was a lot of information. Some of it's really high level, some of it's really in depth. If you have any questions, please hit the chat. If you have verticalized questions, we'd love to talk about, your specific company and answer any questions there. We'll get to that at the end. We'll go through some of the things that we're seeing since COVID, industries that are performing really well. You can see on the left-hand side, makes sense, household goods, fitness products, especially at-home gyms. I mean, some of our clients have doubled, tripled their spend there. Just absolutely ridiculous growth over the last 2 months. Health and wellness and beauty. I mean, people are at home now. People are shopping a lot more. We've seen those categories pick up quite a bit. So nutritional products as well, supplements. Fashion and apparel hasn't moved too much. I think it took a hit initially, especially in the first 2 to 3 weeks, and especially if we had clients with a higher price point in the fashion apparel vertical. Now it's recovered. I'd say the last 2 to 3 weeks, we're seeing month over month, year over year, pretty normal performance, if not better. Obviously, everything related to travel has really taken a hit. Jewelry and luxury we've seen take a hit, although that's starting to bounce back as well. So let us know if you're in any of those categories and you have questions. Interesting note from Google here. They came out with this at the end of March. 60% of consumers are actually just as much or more than they were before likely to shop online. I think that's pretty interesting, and that's something we've seen. We've seen search volume increase. We've seen more people on YouTube. CPCs have stayed relatively the same. I think we have seen a drop in cost per view on YouTube because there's more people searching, right? More demand, and supply necessarily hasn't changed at all. If anything, some of the big players stopped advertising on YouTube. So we saw a bit of a fluctuation in CPV within some verticals, but thought it was very interesting to share that obviously more people are at home, more people are shopping right now. And I think other factors like the stimulus check helped with performance as well. And if you're a brand out there, I just wanted to put this in here because I think it's the most important thing. We had a client that sells at-home gyms. They literally sold out. They got more inventory. They had a hard time with shipping, but the entire time they were very transparent on how long it was going to take to get a product to a customer. They made it the headline of their homepage, where it was going to take at least 1 to 2 weeks before their product shipped. I think that's the most important thing. Being humble, being very transparent with your internal ops, how long it's going to take to get a product, but also with your copy, being proactive. I think that's and then we saw some clients, when this happened, they really pulled back, and we saw some clients hang in there, and the ones that hung in there are really the ones that were able to kind of catch a wave of that online behavior that we were just talking about. So I think not making knee-jerk reactions and staying true to kind of your marketing strategy is really important here as well. And to round out, and we'll leave this for you, but these are all the campaign types that you could be running. So this is it. When we look at a perfect account, we talked about product adoption, audience adoption earlier. This is what it looks like. You're running all of these different types of campaigns with the exception of shopping. You either run standard or smart. You don't traditionally run both. And I wanted to put this in here for you guys so that you could come back to it and say, well, is my media buyer running a non-branded RLSA campaign? Have we tested YouTube remarketing yet? Just so you guys know for a baseline what it looks like when you've built out everything under the sun. We also have these creative examples in here where I know YouTube is a bit of a scary place for a lot of people. Again, a lot of people have always thought of YouTube as a branding product, but really it's not. It's really a place where you can acquire new customers and reach the upper funnel. And we've let you have videos here that we're actually running on YouTube, so you could see what's worked in the past. Some of them are more branded, some of them are very product specific, but you can see the ROAS on some of these videos and the view rates are very healthy. So we wanted to include a bunch of different verticals from apparel to CPG for you guys to go back to and say, okay, what are some other brands winning on? And what are some of the ROASs that they're hitting? Again, this is blended acquisition and remarketing. So go back, view these, look at these ads. Some of them cost a lot of money to make. Some of them were very bootstrapped. So again, I don't want creative to hold you back. There's a lot of creative things that you can do to actually win on YouTube and display. So with that, we have some case studies in here as well that I'll run through, but I think, it's been almost 40 minutes now. I want to get to some of your questions. So Sagute, I think we'll pass it back over to you for anything in the chat, or we maybe can start with some of these questions here.
Yeah, perfect. That was really insightful, first of all. So thank you. I feel like you guys covered a full range and lots of kind of activity and buzz going on in the chats. I know there's people from all different, industries, to fitness, to all of that. I personally also really loved towards the end kind of highlighting the fact that YouTube is a search engine. Like, let's not forget about that. And I've been seeing personally a lot of YouTube channels, for example, a home decor store, right? They start a YouTube channel on interior design. And then I'm sure what they're doing, right, is then targeting their viewers to start shopping for their products and all of that. So I like that. Is there any kind of examples of creative YouTube, ads that you guys have run?
Yeah, I think what we just showed, users can go back to that and look at those videos. It doesn't have to be, a big $80,000 shoot. You can just get customers sitting on their couch talking about your product, do some really scrappy UGC, and that works just as well. I think a rule of thumb as well is like, if you have social video that's working well on Instagram and on Facebook, it's likely to transfer over to YouTube as well. I mean, that's how we started, right? Creative first agency. A lot of the stuff that we had initially from a video perspective was built for Facebook and Instagram. And we were like, all right, well, let's see if this works on YouTube. A lot of those same principles, what makes people buy, are the same on YouTube. There are some creative differences, but yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, a lot of people are using YouTube to discover brands, second biggest search engine. So we kind of want to reverse the narrative that Google is only a place where you can kind of retain customers and remarket to customers and capture that top of funnel Facebook traffic. We want to make sure people know that that's happening on Google as well.
Yeah. So let's highlight actually the top question that you have here, which is, what metrics do you analyze to determine strong YouTube creatives?
Yeah. We talked a little bit about the video viewer audiences. Obviously, the number one metric is ROAS, direct conversion and view through conversion. Make sure your view through window is set to 1 day. But other metrics to look if you have actual strong creative, look at your CPCs. So if you can get someone to the site from your YouTube ad for less than $1.50, it's really good, especially considering take how much it might cost you on Google Shopping or Google Search to get someone to the site. Compare that to YouTube. And so we always say really strong creative. I mean, we've even seen it to where we're funnel cold traffic to the site for 60 cents, 75 cents. That's amazing, right? Obviously, you're still looking at ROAS, but you're like, this is really building a top of funnel audience. The other thing is view rate. You want to see how many people are actually viewing your ad. So 25 to 30% is usually normal. Anything above, I'd say 35%, really strong view rate. And then you want to look at your CPMs, especially for remarketing. Sometimes your remarketing CPMs can be like $35, $40. And that's when you want to look at your format and maybe change it to a cost per view campaign where you're actually telling Google exactly what you want to pay. Cost per view. Cost per view is the other metric. So I think anywhere between 4 cents and 10 cents for a view is healthy. If you're paying, 20, 30, 40, 50 cents for a view, it's really expensive. It's going to be really hard to win on YouTube. And it means there's either something wrong with your targeting, wrong with your creative, and you're just not getting, from a CPC perspective, you're just not getting enough people to the site.
Yeah. And I know you also had a about the brands who are doing well right now are the ones that hung in there. At the same time, I think there's a little bit of hesitation as well with, what kind of keywords are good and if there's anything to avoid. So one of the questions from the chat actually is, are there any negative keywords I should avoid specific to COVID right now?
It's interesting. We've seen, it's a good question. I mean, it depends on your brand and what you're selling. If you're selling, products that are sensitive to the situation, mask, hand sanitizer, you're just going to run into policy issues now. Google's actually disapproving a lot of those ads, but I'd have to know the brand to talk specifically about. I would be mindful of the situation, be mindful of your copy. There's a lot out there, brands getting chastised and criticized for the copy or the creative they put out, trying to take advantage of a situation. Don't put yourself in that situation, right? So from a keyword perspective, I'd really have to know about your brand, but I really think it just all comes to being, aware of the situation, comes back to being aware of the situation. And just try not to make some of those mistakes.
Yeah. And another question here from the chat. You mentioned that most of my ad budget should be on Google Ads. Is there a recommended Google product I should be using more than another? For example, YouTube banners versus Google Shopping.
Yeah, if you're if you're a new brand and you're spending, let's say, $10K a month on Google, I would say 50% of that should go to Google Shopping, 20%, 30% of that should go to, and the rest in YouTube. If you only have, say, like $5,000 and you really just want to be really conversion focused, I would just lean into Google Shopping and maybe some non-branded search. Shopping is going to be where you get the best results by far. So I think win there first, and then especially if you're budget strapped, and then expand into some of these other products. We recommend product adoption, of course, for a lot of our brands, but it's only if you're getting the appropriate performance, and it's only if you have the budget for it. So it's important to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah. And there's actually a related question from Sergi. What is the best bid strategy when starting out with Google Shopping?
That's a good question. I think, Jenna, I mean, you have any recommendations there? I think maybe like ROAS, TCPA is what I would lean into. It also depends on what campaign type you're running. If you're running smart or standard.
Exactly. Typically, when I start a shopping campaign for a brand new brand, I'll actually start with standard shopping, because then you can get a lot of search query insights, which in turn helps with your feed optimizations. Typically on just manual bidding, but depending on volume and budgets, I can sometimes use target CPA to limit that volume.
Yeah, TCPA, if you're not getting the appropriate performance that you want in the beginning, moving over to TCPA can be healthy. Again, we talked about it, but the thing about automated bid strategies is you do need a bit of conversion data in the account. I'd say at least like 10 conversions, a week for it to really fully be optimizing. Because what it's doing is it's taking those conversions and it's figuring out who your customer is based on where they are located. So I mean, you can lean into automated bid strategies like TCPA from the beginning, but as Jenna said, we typically start with like a manual CPC so we can have more control over the bid.
Awesome. And we do have a few sort of different questions we'll group together, more from beginners who are starting out. They're in verticals of apparel, health supplements. And the question is, what are the best tips for beginners getting started with Google Ads?
I would say really understand how to build a shopping feed. I mean, you can go on YouTube and figure out all of these things, but watch a few videos on how to build like a really, I say robust a lot, but robust in the sense that like there's a lot of fields in a shopping feed. You have a title field, you have a description field. Obviously, you have images that you can test against, custom labels for how you segment your products. That's the engine. That's what's going to make your shopping or tell Google what kind of search queries you want to show up for. So I heard apparel in there. If you're at home, for instance, search men's pants or men's most comfortable pants. One of our clients is Public Rec, and they typically show up first for that query, and they have for quite some time. And that's because a few years ago, we sat down, we figured out which queries we wanted to show up for, and we really liked the comfort angle. And we stuffed that into every product title that we possibly could. And now we're winning that query at scale, right? So figure out what non-branded variants want to win the vegan query. We'll figure out how to build a shopping feed, what queries you want to win on, and then build that within Google Merchant Center and open up shopping. And then I would say use some of the strategies we talked about today to kind of brand really broadly, right? Don't just go out and bid on vegan makeup. Do it in a smart way. Do it in a way where what geo are my customers typically live in? What audiences on Google are they combined with? Like, are they in the beauty audience, right? So, yeah, I think that would be my initial recommendation.
Cool. So we have, I believe, one more. And this actually kind of ties up to your second point there. What budgets do you recommend starting on Google? And this into question, if somebody has $100 right now, right? Times are a little bit, and they don't want to go all out. For that $100, where would you start?
Well, if you're just talking about Google, it'd be shopping. But if you also are running Facebook and Instagram ads, which are still the best way to build on top of funnel and build a brand, we usually see like a 60-40 split between Instagram and Google. That differs by vertical. Sometimes it's 70-30. Sometimes Google is 60-40. But I would say to start out with, if you're really cash strapped and you're really ROAS focused, starting at $100, I'd put it all towards shopping, and maybe anything else, it'd be non-branded search or branded search, just to kind of capture some of those queries.
Cool. And let's finish on there. What are the biggest challenges for a brand to win on Google?
The biggest challenge, because you can build out a nice shopping feed, you can run Google Shopping, it's doing its thing, you got non-branded search honed in, and then it's like, what's next? And what's next is all of the other Google products we talked about today. Display, dynamic retargeting, Gmail ads, discovery ads, YouTube ads, not only video ads, but you can do YouTube discovery ads as well, right? So like really trying to figure out the creative portion and how to leverage Google with your creative is the most challenging thing. Finding good creative is the most challenging thing in general, and building good creative is the most challenging thing in general for a brand. But understanding how to use that creative on Google seems to be even more challenging for brands. So I would say we talked a lot today. We talked about a lot how to win on YouTube, how to lean into different audiences and leverage these different audiences. Go back and look at that. And go back and look at the video examples that we dropped in, because a lot of those, again, were created on scrappy budgets as well. So,
yeah, and it's an interesting point that you say it's the creative right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is kind of the time where we are all a little bit more forgiving. You don't need the perfect ad, you don't need the perfect video. Yeah. So if there's ever a time to really experiment, try that, YouTube for the first time or anything like that. It's probably in a way a good time to test that out.
Absolutely. I think in some ways, like the more organic, scrappy creative, again, like UGC, people just kind of giving a product review, that stuff works better because it's just transparent, right? It's like you can relate to the person, and it doesn't feel like an ad. So
yeah, nice. Well, we are almost at the top of the hour. So first of all, Jenna and Harrison, thank you so much for the presentation and for all the questions that you're answering. It's been really great to have you both here. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us. This was great.
Awesome. Having us.
Yeah, and also before we let everybody off the hook here, I did want to remind, if anybody is new, we still have the extended Shopify trial to 90 days, and we're constantly releasing different initiatives. So you can just go to shopify.com/COVID-19, and if let us know how you like this webinar, the topic. If there's other topics that you'd like to learn over the coming weeks, there is a feedback survey, so please leave that for us as well. And like promised, we will have the replay up probably by tomorrow when you come back to shopifycompass.com or on the mobile app. And so with that, thank you everybody for tuning in, or if you're watching the replay, thank you for joining us, and have a great rest of your week.